This is the moment. This is what those early mornings were for. Every training, every match, every battle. For this moment. This is the moment.
Chicharito got there and bounces it.
Gaston sends the goal. Score! Should go to goal. He scores!
Chicharito's in. Chance to make it two. Vasquez. Oh!
This is when legends are made.
Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a very special playoff edition of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box. On October 10th, the LA Galaxy get a 3-1 victory over the Houston Dynamo in Houston over the weekend. That clinched the home playoff game. And, of course, now the LA Galaxy getting ready to face Nashville on Saturday at 12 p.m., a 12:08 p.m. kickoff time as of right now on Univision, but you're going to make sure that you're there in the stadium, I'm sure. We've got a lot to get to. We're going to talk about the win in Houston. We're going to get you through some of the wrap-up of the 34 games that the Galaxy now played over the last season. And, of course, I'm sure there'll be some little tidbits, some little morsels of that playoff game coming up against Nashville here very, very soon. To help me do all that is a guy who basically just lost his video right as we were getting ready to start, but I think we got him back. I think we finally got you back, Kevin. Do we have you? Yes, we got you.
All that fancy stuff at the beginning. My sound went out and it was all crackly, and I just had to start over again.
Yeah, I know, but you see, like, the sound's not supposed to be good for you, Kevin. That's not how it works, right? Like, so if the sound is crackly, that's because it's not supposed to be good for you.
Well, it's good. It's good now.
Oh, well, that's.
I did see the part where it said "Legends never die," and I took that to mean that was a reference to Malia Emma coming back. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Why don't you tell everybody the joke that you said on Twitter? Because you're going to say it anyway. So
no,
I'm ready.
If I told the joke again, I would have to then kill people to keep it secret.
That's right. Very good.
I am glad she's coming back. Look, the Galaxy are undefeated when she sings the national anthem. She
did it once. Did she do it once? She's done it twice.
No, she's done it 3 times. She did it the 2018 game.
Okay.
That was in September, October. It was against Seattle. They won.
Okay.
She did the 2019 opener.
Mm-hmm.
And then she did it and the El Tráfico when Landon got a statue.
Okay. So those
Galaxy won the first 2. They tied LAFC.
So this is her 4th appearance
for the Galaxy, correct? And
okay.
She was the only person affiliated with MLS that Zlatan was impressed by.
Well, her and Efrain Alvarez.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. So,
and they're about the same size.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Paul already gave us a $2 super chat and says, "What time will the gates open for tailgating?" You know, I don't know. Do we have that information? I'm trying to sort of see. They gave us some programming information. I'm I'm trying to see. I don't know that they've given us a match day schedule yet of exactly when it goes. Now, we know that the gates into the stadium are going to open 2 hours before, so they're going to open at 10 a.m. That they have told us, but I don't know what time tailgating is because I don't think we've been given that. But Paul, we will do our best to get you all that
information. Can you have
whenever.
pupusas for breakfast?
Yeah, of course you can. See, first of all, you have to understand that one, yes, you can pretend it's breakfast if you're out there tailgating at 10 o'clock, right? You can pretend it's breakfast, or you can just pretend that you don't care about breakfast. You're just going to go straight to the lunch, straight to the hard liquor, all the stuff that you would normally do. I mean, people are going to do that anyway, right? People are going to be drinking tequila at 10:30 a.m., right?
You know what? Morning drinking leads to morning drunken.
That's what I've heard. But no, we appreciate that super chat. Okay, LA Galaxy, 3-1 winners over Houston. Did something that they've only done one other time all season. Kevin, what was that one? What was it?
Come back after conceding the first goal. They came back to win.
That is come back to win after giving up the first goal. Who was the other team they did it against? Do you remember?
No.
Austin. They gave up the first goal and then came through and got
in Texas.
Yeah,
they've done it 2 of the 3 times they were in Texas. Here's another stat. Did you know the last time the Galaxy hosted or opened the playoffs at home? Last time they hosted a playoff game was 2016. The last time they opened the playoffs at home was also 2016. And in that game, Landon Donovan and Brian Rose started. Robbie Keane came off the bench. Alan Gordon had 2 assists and a goal.
Oh, really? That was
Ashley Cole played in that game. Yellow Von Dam. That's how long it's been.
That was the RSL game because then the next game that they played was Colorado, which Giovanni Dos Santos scored the only goal
right,
in a 1-0, and then it went 1-0 away to Colorado, and they lost on penalty kicks. That was 2016.
The Steven Gerrard was on that team. Mike McGee, Ashley Cole. I said, this is a trip down memory lane. If you want to go back and look at the box score from that game. It's been a long time, I think is kind of the point.
Yeah, it feels like it has been a long time. So the Galaxy get 3 goals, a goal from Riqui Puig, a goal from Chicharito, and a goal from Dejan Joveljic as well. So that was it. 31-32, by the way. They came just a minute apart, which was kind of fun to watch. LA Galaxy now solidly in we have a starting lineup, and it's going to be this every single time unless somebody gets hurt, right? And so what we saw Grandsir and Chicha and Douglas Costa up top in a 4-3-3, right? You had Puig and Brugman and Delgado in what has now become one of the best midfields in Major League Soccer. A little concerned about Mark Delgado coming out of the game. We'll see if it's anything. We didn't get to talk to Greg Vanny about it. I forgot, and we were talking about other things, so that one was on me, but we're still trying to find out status, and we will know status before the game because I'm sure somebody's going to ask on Thursday at the very latest. You had Edwards and Cáceres back there, and Koulibaly and Araujo, and then Jonathan Bond. And Jonathan Bond, Kevin, what distinction does Jonathan Bond have this year? Do you know? I'm sure there's many, but I'm thinking of one in particular.
He started all 34 games?
He played every minute of every game in 34 games. Only 6 players in all of Major League Soccer were able to do that. Only one of them was not a goalkeeper. And that was, it was the Philadelphia Union's Jacob Glensis, right? Glesnes. Yes.
So Jonathan Bond gets the Memorial Christian Pavone Leadership Award.
Right.
Iron Man Award.
Play every minute of every game, that type of thing. Yeah, it was funny. But you had Andre Blake, goalkeeper, Jonathan Bond, goalkeeper, Sean Johnson, goalkeeper, Zach McMath, goalkeeper, Eloy Room, goalkeeper. All goalkeepers who get that. And usually so, you would expect that somebody misses some minutes at some point. But Jonathan Bond did play every minute of every regular season game in there. So that was fun. To sort of see that get played out. Again, the 3-1 victory. The Galaxy give up the first goal. Here's the thing, though, Kevin. If you were watching this game, and I know there's people who love to argue about things like this, so I'm gonna say it as unequivocally as I can. If you're watching this game, this was one of the most dominant performances I've seen the LA Galaxy have, maybe the whole year, and it was against a bad team. Let's be very clear, but we know that hasn't always been their forte, right? And we saw the LA Galaxy have 66% possession. We saw them launch, I think, 21 or 22 shots Now 7 of those were on target, but it was just a constant barrage against the Houston Dynamo. And the only goal that Houston got was the first goal in the 8th minute. And just a broken play, a little defensive problem, and things that we've seen from the Galaxy so many times. It's a warning sign for what could happen in the playoffs, especially if you're talking about a team like Nashville, who is very stingy on defense and who looks to exploit those little mistakes that get made on defense in order to score goals. So,
well, I saw Nashville on Sunday. I was scouting for the Galaxy.
Yes.
They hired me as a scout, and so I was at the game. Joe Willis was just out of his friggin' mind. 14 saves, 20 LA Galaxy, and you're right about to talk about the playoffs, because when you look at, for a moment, if you look at it from LAFC's perspective, 29 shots, season high, 14 on goal, season high. They don't score. Right. That tells you, hey, you can be a dominant team for 34 games. You get to the playoffs, you get a hot goalkeeper and a fluky goal, and you're out. I mean, Willis stopped a penalty shot from Christian Arango. It was an amazing performance. And again, that the message for the playoffs couldn't be clearer. You know, it's not always the best team. It's not always the most dominant team. But looking at it from the Galaxy's perspective, Greg Vanny said all along, look, the playoff start, or the season starts 10 games out. The Galaxy in their last 11 are 5-1-5. They're one of the hottest teams in MLS.
Yep.
They're getting hot at the right time. Arguably the best game of the season came in the last game. That's exactly what you want to be doing. You talked about the lineup solidified. Puig and Brugman. Brugman gets the assist on the go-ahead goal. Puig scores the game-tying goal.
Yep.
These guys have lost once playing together. They played 10 games together this season. They lost once. So Puig comes in right when they start this hot streak. Things could not be going, in my opinion, things could not be going better for the Galaxy. They're getting hot. They're getting chemistry. They now have a set lineup. They have confidence, and they're at home. If you had said that in the middle of August, that any of those things were going to happen when you were watching the plane fly around the stadium that said fire Jovan, fire Klein, if you had known, if someone had said to you, this is how the season's going to end, I think that you would never been able to believe them.
Yeah, I mean, at one point, and you and I think, verified it, the LA Galaxy were in 9th position in the Western Conference, right? 9th position just before the Vancouver game, and it looked like they were done. Right, that was it. They weren't going to be able to make their way back. Now, you said the Galaxy are one of the hottest. The Galaxy have lost only once in their last 11 matches, dating all the way back to August 13th, holding a record of 5-1-5, outscoring the opposition 26-19. Since August 13th, the Galaxy's 5-1-5 record, which is 20 points, ranks as the best in the Western Conference and ranks 3rd in the league behind only Montreal and Philadelphia Union. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Montreal in the MLS Cup game, Kevin, because they have very quietly put together an unbelievable season. And I think they finished only 2 or 3 points off of the Supporters Shield, number, which is what Philadelphia and LAFC both finished on. Montreal is right there. So Montreal has been an incredibly good team. Philadelphia has been outstanding down the stretch whenever they're coming through. So the Galaxy's 20 points is still the best in the Western Conference. And when you figure that the Galaxy have been playing mostly Western Conference teams, especially in this last stretch, especially as they go head into the playoffs, the Galaxy are the hottest team in the Western Conference.
Well, you've been asking me questions. Let me ask you a couple. So everyone talks about Supporters Shield. You just talked about it now. Supporters Shield, best team in the league. How many Supporters Shield teams in the last decade have won MLS Cup?
In the last decade, see, this was Greg Vanny almost got me, because Greg Vanny said only one team in the last decade has won.
Toronto, 2017.
And it was Toronto, and I'm like, but the Galaxy did it in 2011, which is just outside the decade, right? So,
it's only 7 teams, 5 franchises, 7 teams. The Galaxy and DC United did it twice, and DC United is very misleading because they did the first 2 seasons of MLS. So it's the point is, it's extremely rare, especially in the modern era, for a team to win Supporters Shield and win MLS Cup. And the reason is it's different playing top-notch soccer and over a 34-game schedule when you have all kinds of things like heat, 3 games a week. Yeah, that tests depth, it tests all those things. But as we talked about, you go to the playoffs, it's one and done,
right.
A fluky game, a goaltender like Joe Willis stands on his head, whatever it is. I just like where the Galaxy is because they are right now, they have finally hit stride. And that's not to say Philadelphia, Montreal, some of these other teams have been good all season, haven't.
Right.
But, it's in every sport. You look at football and baseball, the wild card teams tend to be the teams that do really well in the playoffs because they are sprinting into the playoffs while the other teams are sort of trying to maintain.
Yeah, you can see it. By the way, $5 super chat from Raphael says, "Thank you guys for the playoff edition of COG. The digs will be rocking on Saturday. I expect it to sell out. I'm just telling you right now. By the way,
I mean, even with the early start time.
Yeah, even with the early start. Now, it was funny because whenever after the game and after the Houston game, everybody's going, "Oh, MLS has us playing the 9 a.m. game." I'm like, you're not going to play the 9 a.m. It's not going to happen. Nobody's playing a 9 a.m. game on the West Coast. But when you think about it, I'm going to have to be there at 10 in order to be. I might as well be a 9 a.m. guy. I was joking, Kevin. If it was a 9 a.m. game, I would have had to get there at 7 in order to be there, you know?
I got to leave as soon as we sign off to get from here to there
to try and get in. But no, it was as we told everybody it was going to be as well. The 4-5 matchup was more than likely going to be Saturday at 12 p.m. and it ended up being Saturday at 12 p.m. So we'll continue to sort of talk about that a little bit more as we keep going through all this. But yeah, I can't say enough. You talked about Riqui. You talked about Puig. You talked about Brugman. Brugman was absolutely hands down the man of the match in this game. And the craziest thing happens only because it's MLS and nobody can watch 14 games in one day. And certainly nobody's going to watch, 7 games at the same time. But the crazy thing is that the Gaston Brugman got put on the bench on the team of the week, and I guarantee there was not a more dominant midfielder in all of Major League Soccer, and I don't care how many goals they scored, than Gaston Brugman was in this particular game. Now, before I said after the game, Kevin, right away, I was like, Gaston Brugman absolutely had one of the best games I think I've ever seen from him, and maybe one of the best performances sort of in that defensive midfielder position from someone in the Galaxy all year, and then I wanted to go to FOTMob to see if I was correct, and I was correct. Gaston Brugman rated a 9.1 on the day, and they actually had Grand Sur above Riqui Puig as well. 8.4 for Grand Sur, had a nice assist, had a good shot on goal, got stopped on the shot on goal, but the assist was good, even though it looked like he screwed up the pass at one point. The little cut back to find Puig, who was streaking in, who was able to take a touch and then bury it in the back of the net, was outstanding. So those were your top performers, but as much as I almost think, and this is almost an AJ and an Omar, AJ De La Garza and Omar Gonzalez thing here. They play off of each other. Riqui Puig and Gaston Brugman make each other the best, right? And so you can't have one without the other. I think that Riqui could go out there and he could have some good performances in the middle of the field, but the fact that he was able to come in and gel with Delgado and gel particularly with Brugman, and Brugman has just been able to sort of fall into this stuff and just pick up and go. He said afterwards, and I asked him how he was able to adjust so quickly to Major League Soccer, and he says, I thought it would be a lot harder. He goes, but I said the same thing whenever I think he said whenever he was playing in Italy, or I think that's where he said. He goes, but I said the same thing in Italy, and I adapted there really fast too. And he was like, I understand it. It's just easy. It's just easier for me.
Well, one thing about this is Ryan Hollinshead of LAFC was asked last night. By the way, if the Galaxy, whoever wins the Galaxy Nashville game will play LAFC next, so it could be the Galaxy. And so Hollinshead was asked about, well, you guys going to be watching that game and what could happen next. And he said the Galaxy are a completely different team. It's not the same team that we faced before. He did say, and I think he's wrong, he said they're trying to find their identity. I think they found their identity. 5-1-5. I think that's a pretty strong ID right there. He said that they've changed. They're trying to find their identity, but he did admit that this is a totally different team, and that the idea of, look, we played them 3 times already, we got this. He said, no, we got to go back to film and start all over again. This is a team we've never seen before.
They're already paying attention. This is the whole thing. The whole league is paying attention, right? And I will tell you that I know the whole league is paying attention because I'm going to be on MLS Soccer's Twitter Spaces show they're going to do tomorrow to talk about the LA Galaxy again, right? It's like they forgot about the LA Galaxy for a while. They didn't exist, and then of course now they're there again. I've read multiple articles today that have the LA Galaxy as a team that absolutely could win it all. Now, again, go back just 10 games, Kevin. Go back 10 games. And if somebody said the LA Galaxy could win it all, you would have sat there and laughed in their face. The turnaround has been, and I don't want to get all rainbows and unicorns on this. I don't want to be overly optimistic on any of this stuff. But what we have seen from the LA Galaxy in closing out this season and doing the things that they were supposed to do, this is a perfect example of how far they've come. We started this chart, Kevin. We looked at this chart and we said, man, I don't know where the Galaxy are going to get wins, right? It's like you sort of look at this and go, how do they get to 48 points? And you're sort of trying to figure it out in your head. And you're like, maybe they can beat Atlanta, and okay, Dallas is going to be tough. Sporting Kansas City is going to be a tough game. We knew that, right? And so we started going through this before we could see all these go down. Look at what the LA Galaxy did over these last 14 games. They lost 3 games out of those last 14. All right.
Well,
3 games. That was it.
Well, here's a big question. You talk about going back 10. I'll go back 11 games. Oh, and by the way, shout out to Kevin Acevedo of the Galaxy Communications Department, who we know is listening tonight because
Hi, Kevin.
we've been on double secret probation since you got red carded by Jovan a couple of months ago. And so now the Galaxy listen to everything we do. We're on double secret probation. But in any case, my question was going to be, so 11 games ago, fans are flying a banner around the stadium. I'm writing that the Galaxy are dysfunctional, have a dysfunctional front office. Everyone knows it. The Athletic wrote it. ESPN wrote it. It was their situation. I think big changes had to be made. Now 11 games later, the Galaxy are in the playoffs. As you said, they're a team that now people are looking at and saying this team could win it. A totally different team. Jovan and Chris brought in Riqui Puig and brought in Brugman. So do we look at that and now say, okay, they're good, give them contract extensions, Klein and Jovan get to stay forever? Or do we still look at that and say, man, this is a dysfunctional front office. They got lucky. So a couple of things fell in their lap. Greg Vanney made it work, turned it around. Where are we on that? I'm not so sure that it's black and white anymore.
No, it's not. But I think we always have to abide by this rule. And I think it's the fair rule, which is if you do good things, then you should get credit for the good things that you do. And if you do bad things, then you get credit for the bad things you do, right? And so you absolutely need to give everybody in the front office, Jovan, Klein, everybody who made the signing for Riqui Puig, quite honestly, to have the cojones to actually think about trying to get Riqui Puig was a big one. Greg Vanney talked about it, and he said, whenever he was with Toronto, he said, that they were going to go after Sebastian Giovinco. And he goes, we were like, well, I guess you're never going to get him if you don't ask, right? And it's like one of these things, it's like, well, we didn't think we were going to get him. Right. And the same thing with Riqui Puig. They deserve the credit for it. Absolutely 100%. Right. And they should be jumping up and down and shouting it from the rooftops as loudly as they possibly can. Right. To talk about how it happened, how they were able to get, a Barcelona star that basically was out of the team. They weren't even taking him on preseason. And he comes over here and listen, this is not about, and I still see people arguing about this, and I could care less. It's not about the different levels between La Liga and MLS, right? I could care less what it is. Riqui Puig is a soccer player. He's a football player. He can play. All of the things that so far people have told us about Riqui, that he was this prima donna and that he was not good defensively. And listen, he's not good defensively. It doesn't matter because
they don't play defense.
He doesn't need to play.
He's never heard of it before.
Right.
By the way, I talked to a source at one of my sources at Barcelona and said, "Can you guys talk to me a little bit about Riqui Puig? Like what was he like when he was there?" And they go, "We will not talk about a player who is no longer on our team." So,
yeah.
The thing, as great a player as he's been, and certainly we're all impressed by, especially his passing and the idea that he doesn't play defense. They don't play defense at Barcelona, so that's okay. But the thing that's impressed me the most is his desire. I did not think that he would want to be here. I thought that he would come over here and kind of mope about and say, I used to be on Barcelona, now I'm in MLS. How did this happen to me? Kind of like, remember when Chicha came in and there was that video that leaked of him crying to his father, the dream is over. That's what I expected to see from Riqui Puig. And there's not even a trace of that. He seems to be 150% bought into this project and committed. And maybe it's selfish. Maybe he thinks the sooner I prove that I'm a great player, the sooner I go back. That's fine.
But he doesn't look like that though. He doesn't look like that, right?
He looks like somebody from the LA Riot Squad or one of the, from the ACB. He really looks like he's a supporter, someone that's bought into the whole project.
He does. Greg sort of cautioned us, I think, at one point earlier whenever Riqui came in. He sort of said, don't underestimate what having somebody like Riqui Puig added to the team can do for you, right? Don't underestimate his enthusiasm. Don't underestimate, his ability to pull everybody up. A rising tide lifts all boats type of thing, which is if Riqui is doing good and he's talking to everybody and everybody's feeling good. And you can see it about this LA Galaxy team. There was all of this consternation, and certainly we had guys like Derek Williams saying, well, the coach gives us a game plan and some guys aren't listening to the game plan, right? And the whole deal. And then we had after Sporting Kansas City game where Douglas Costa sort of played his own game and sort of ruined a whole bunch of things for the Galaxy, and then Greg Vanney sat him down, right? And so there's these rumblings that, the locker room was lost. And the bottom line was that was never the case. It was not lost, right? But there was some discipline that had to be issued out, and it looks like by Greg Vanney or perhaps the other players, in order to right some things. And we thought it could have been a whole bunch of players. It was probably Douglas Costa more than anything. But look at what Vanney was able to do with Douglas Costa, even if you just let's take a small sample size of the last 10 games or so, right? Which is take a guy who was completely useless for 2/3 of the season, right? Who most people forgot he even played for the LA Galaxy because he wasn't getting playing time. He was either injured or whenever he was on the field, he was ineffective. And they then put him out into a team where he now fits perfectly, right? They found him spot. But not only did they find him a spot, it wasn't just about them adjusting to what Douglas Costa could do, right? It was about Douglas Costa adjusting to what Greg Vanney wanted as well. And so when you look at what coaching happened during that time, what advancements were made with a veteran, world-class, at one point player like Douglas Costa, right? And Vanney was able to get him on the same page as everybody else. That's something, and you can't deny that's something.
Well, neither one of us were in the locker room for those conversations, and we really don't know if they happened or how they happened or whatever. But what we do know is what we can see from the press box or on TV. And whether Douglas Costa, is invaluable now or whatever, the body language, just the body language that we saw from Douglas Costa compared to Riqui Puig since he's been here, I guess that's what I'm sort of talking about. Riqui Puig is excited to be out there and contributing, and he loves playing. Costa's a great player, but there were long stretches when he didn't seem like he was all that involved or all that enthusiastic about what he was doing. And that may just be the way he's always played. I didn't watch him play his whole career. He may just give off that nonchalant, but you're right. Riqui is a guy that players rally to, and that can unite a team. And I think we've seen that.
Yeah, you could certainly can. $5 super chat from Mario says he wants to give them credit, but upgrade the front office. Why not go to Europe and see if we can get a better front office the same way we got Puig? I would say that mostly because any European front office is going to struggle mightily in order to adjust to MLS rules. So I would disagree with that approach altogether. And we've seen it over and over again. You at least need somebody within the organization that understands all the MLS rules. And whereas we've seen so many times, Kevin, where international people have come in, international coaches, international front office, those types of things, and they've had guys on the inside who try to tell them the rules, it's a totally different operating environment than what it is whenever you go like overseas. I think Dennis Teclosa dove in as far as like an international guy, but he had already been in MLS at one point, right, with Chivas USA at one point. So he knew what to expect. He knew about the rules. He knew coming in how to manipulate and how you're going to have to be smart and savvy with knowing every single one of those rules. So for me, no, but there are plenty of guys within the United States that you could go out and get that could make a front office, a general manager, Garth Lagerwey up in Seattle.
Todd
Donovan, perhaps that would also be one. But again,
perhaps.
Well, there is, and I think it's a rightful criticism. It's another former LA Galaxy player with some experience at a lower level, but not necessarily an experience at the upper level of management and of being a general manager on an MLS club. So you understand you're getting somebody who has not done that job at the MLS level.
Well, there are certain people, like you mentioned, Garth Lagerwey. I just think he's the greatest. John Thornton has proved that he really understands how to manipulate, and that's what it is. Let's be honest. It's not working within the rules. It's manipulating the rules. It's like NASCAR. Right. You always try to cheat a little bit. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. It's manipulating the rules. Bruce Arena was a genius at that. Mm-hmm. If you can get one of those guys to come in,
well, I mean, Tim Bazpachenko, who worked with Greg Vanney in Toronto, who's now at Columbus,
a good choice.
Columbus just fired their head coach, right? So there's some people.
I guess my point is, and Philadelphia has been successful, but I guess my point was going to be that it's not easy, and you see teams like Carlos Bocanegra is really struggling in Atlanta. There are certain teams that are up there every year, and other teams like Montreal, they plummeted and they came back up. All things being equal, though, when you're talking about bringing people in, if you get some of those top shelf people, but if you don't, the Galaxy, to me, seemed to be such a unique organization. And it's not a cult organization like other teams, but it's a unique organization with a unique history and a unique culture. And that's why I would favor if, again, all things being equal, a former Galaxy player coming in makes a lot of sense to me. If it's just going to be, but if you can get one of those guys that, again, knows how to manipulate the rules, that's the guy you want to go for, because it's and MLS is going to get more complex. We're talking about maybe adding another DP.
Who's talking about that? Who?
Well, Who?
Give me a verifiable person who you could say that rumor came from, because now.
Because I'm thinking it was somebody that was talking about the increase in rosters
for Leagues
because
Cup.
of Leagues Cup, and they said that it was about, and it was around the Apple TV deal too. That Apple TV is going to want to see a little bit more quality, but the rosters will grow too. I know internationally it's about 28, 30. I think maybe there's going to be some sort of a farm team. Maybe that's what the MLS Next is. But if you look at the schedule, the fixture crunch for next year with MLS Cup or ML Leagues Cup, whatever it's called. Yeah, they can't continue with roster sizes the way they are with the travel, right? And all those other things. Something's going to have to change, and so it's going to become even more important to have somebody in the front office that knows what they're doing.
So we got a $2 super chat from Living Color Abroad. Costa should still be bought out next year. That's going to be one of those interesting things to follow in the offseason, but we're not there yet. So let's not talk about that offseason yet. Vanessa gave us a $5 super chat, says, what exactly is it about the front office that everyone dislikes? And I would say it was probably the results from 2017 onward, up until right about now where the LA Galaxy are suddenly MLS Cup contenders. I don't know. It's weird.
I can go beyond that. I think that there did not seem to be any philosophy. It was sort of throwing a lot of darts at the wall and seeing which ones stick. I mean, look at some of the players that have come through here. Siani, Shelvik, just some of these players that have come through here, Clement Diop, that just didn't work out. And it's like, what were they thinking? There didn't seem to be any plan. Now there seems to be a plan, and I don't know if that's come from Greg Vanney, whether Jovan and Chris Klein have had some sort of, metamorphosis and they've changed. I don't know what it is, but you can see the way this team fits together as opposed to, say, the 2018 team. Rolf Felcher, he's plugged in there, and Bajo Husidic, and guys who may be good players in individual situations, but that they just didn't mesh, and there didn't seem to be a plan. And more importantly, there didn't seem to be an acknowledgement that things were bad and how to fix them. They just kept plugging pieces in to see if it would work. And I didn't think that betrayed a clue of what was going on.
Right. Mario gave us a $2 super chat, says, do you think Todd Donovan would be an upgrade in the front office? I let me answer this, and I think yes is the answer. Here's the reason, though. It's not because he has the experience. It's because that everything that Todd does, he sort of refuses to be bad at. And so if you know him personally and you know how he goes about and his workmanship as he was a player, as he has been as president up in Sacramento and GM in Sacramento, then president up in Sacramento at the USL side, he refuses to be bad at what he does. And that's one of the reasons that you could find somebody like him is certainly one of those guys who you could be like, yes, I know you don't have any experience at the MLS level in the management side, on the front office side, but because of your work rate, your work effort, your ability to understand, and quite honestly, your stubbornness not to lose, it probably makes sense that you could be, the guy who we need as the next LA Galaxy president, or as all these different things. It's super interesting to sort of think about. I love Todd. I think he's great. So,
well, look at the guys who've come through here. Greg Berhalter got to start as a coach, a player coach at the Galaxy. Now he's in the national team. Chris Klein was the guy that Tim Leiweke was grooming through the system, worked with the academy and other things through the system to become the executive that he eventually became. I think there was a little disconnect along the way because I don't think Bruce shared a lot of information. I think Bruce wanted to do everything himself and didn't really want to share his, methods. And then Leiweke left and Dan Beckerman came in, and I think Chris lost a mentor there. He didn't have one in Bruce, and I think when Leiweke left, he lost that mentor. And so I think that went a little bit off the rails. But the Galaxy have always been a team that takes care of its own, brings its own back, and grooms them and teaches them and supports them. That's why I could see a Todd Donovan coming back if he wanted to.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, the whole deal. Paul gave us a $2 super chat, says, will Apple TV work? We were talking about the Apple TV deal. Will Apple TV work with Chromebook, Fire TV, and Android? I've been told anything with a browser, it can work, right? You can literally just type in a web address and it should be able to work, and you should be able to get all the games that you're supposed to get, all that fun stuff. So you technically don't need Apple hardware. You don't need an Apple TV, the physical hardware. You don't need Apple TV Plus. This will be sort of a standalone system all by itself. Now, if you have Apple TV Plus, the subscription service where you can watch some of their shows, there will be some games that are for free that will be broadcast on Apple TV Plus, right? Those types of things. There's some games that will be broadcast for free just over the internet, and then there's still going to be some nationally televised games. We'll see how that sort of still works out with ESPN, if ESPN is interested, if Fox is interested, if Univision is interested, all the same players that are sort of in it right now, about who's going to do it, but it's going to be at a much less price, lower price, because it's not exclusive anymore. Those nationally televised games that will be broadcast to everybody, or either cable or over the air, Kevin, they're also going to be broadcast on Apple TV, so you will know exactly where you want to buy, where you can watch every single game, and there will be no blackouts.
This is way too complicated. I'm waiting for this whole internet thing to just blow over. I'm not even going to buy a computer. I'm just going to wait.
Yeah, we know about your computer issues. Let's see.
I'm a Luddite.
We had a $5. This sort of goes back to our fourth DP comment, but it sort of extends it even crazier.
And I'm still trying to think of who told me that, by the way.
Yeah. Listen, the rumor about the fourth DP has been out there. It's just not substantiated by almost anybody or anything.
Yeah.
It's just
I'm trying to think of who told me that.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
We got a $5 super chat from and they say if MLS somehow had an open salary cap, no DPs, and they're like, I know this would never happen. How much do you think the Galaxy would spend opposed to their current $20 million? Do you think the Galaxy would suddenly increase spending by 10 or 15 or $20 million, Kevin, if there was no cap on anything?
I mean, they certainly could. I always go back to, and I know it's a different time. It was 2017 when the Galaxy were going young and cheap. And Dan Beckerman told me, we have a lot of money that we can spend. And he said, that doesn't mean we suspend it. And the anecdote he gave me was, he said, imagine if I really want a cup of coffee and I go to the coffee store and they say it's $20 for a cup of coffee, and I have $20 in my wallet. I'm not going to pay that because a cup of coffee is not worth $20. And so his point was, well, you may have the money and you may have the desire, but you don't necessarily spend that if that player is not worth it. That's a long way of saying, I don't know if they had a chance to go get Zlatan and he wanted 14 million instead of 7 million. I think they probably would. If they had a chance to get Mark Delgado and he wanted 4 million instead of 1 million, I don't know if they would do that.
It's interesting, though. Do you imagine that whenever you talk to Zlatan, does Zlatan come on a TAM deal at like $1.6 million for his first year? If the LA Galaxy aren't hard up against the cap and they're like, listen, this is literally all we can give you, does he come like then and still come? Or does he like, no, I'm worth at least like 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, $6 million a year, right? Like he's like, you just need to give me the money. Don't you think that sometimes the cap actually falls, like helps MLS teams land bigger names, especially whenever they're hard up against it?
Yeah. I mean, I think you could argue that's how Chiellini got here and that's how Bale got here. But I would like to be in on some of those conversations because, a guy like Chiellini, I know a lot of Galaxy fans haven't had a chance to watch him. He is so much fun to watch. He loves the game so much. One of the favorite things I like to do is he just bowls somebody over and then he'll go over and pick them up and pat them on the head and run away. The point is he would have come for free. I would have loved to be in the room to hear Zlatan's contract negotiations because I don't think a lot of Europeans, as you said, front office people, you tell a guy like Zlatan, look, we can only pay you this. And it's like, what? You're limited to how much you can pay. Right. Gareth Bale just went for $100 million to Real Madrid, and you're telling me you can't give me more than 800,000 or whatever it was. I don't know that they believe it. I mean, he did come and he was very motivated. He had a reason to be here, and it worked out for him because he went and got those millions. But man, those conversations must really have to walk them through it and explain how this works, because in Europe, this has got to be such a foreign concept.
One of the things, let's see, by the way, a $5 super chat from Misanthrope. Yeah, probably. Anybody dare? Yeah, $5 super chat. Anybody dare to tell Puig to change his Instagram profile pic? It's photoshopped and cringe. I'm not going to tell that young lad anything. He still looks like he's 12 every time I talk to him.
One of only 2 players in the league to tuck his jersey in.
Yeah, he's fancy like that. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, the dude just has his own like European style. He's just like carefree. If you see him out on the training field and like walking to and front, he's like happy to be there. He's smiling. He's joking with people. I should point out,
talks to everybody in English.
He does, absolutely, 100%, and so he's getting there. Let's see. I think Gaston Brugman, whenever he was coming in to talk to, was talking some English last night on the call, and then he switched over to Spanish and stuff like that. The big, of course, one, and at least Kevin, Kevin, you will feel good about this. I'm gonna call Vicky Mercado out because she said it. It's on our video. If you go look at our YouTube page and you listen to the post game comments, but she was introducing. She's like, "All right, everybody, we have LA Galaxy forward Dayon," and then she said his last name wrong, and you should have seen his face whenever it happened. How do you think she said it? She said Jovelik, right? And he's like, Jovelik? And he's like, Vicky, you don't know how to say my last name, right? And I was cracking up. I was losing it because I'm like, that's usually something Kevin would say, right?
Well, I was going to say, my segue for this was going to be, I asked Brugman why he was wearing Chicharito's warm-up jersey, and he said he just grabbed one on his way out of the locker room, and that was the one he grabbed. But I was going to ask you, because I knew you were going to give me crap at some point for my mispronunciations, which I roundly and wholly deserve.
Right.
But I'm going to ask you to pronounce Malia Emma's last name. Go for it.
Nope, not going to do it. Malia Emma. That's her stage name. We're going with that. So no, we'll keep it with that. But yeah, so Jovelich was like, you don't know how to pronounce my last name. And then I was called on first. I'm like, it's Jovelich. It's Jovelich. And he's like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, I was just doing that to give Vicky a little bit of a stick there. So it was fun. The guys weren't, as you would imagine, everybody was in a very good mood after winning 3-1 on the road. Everybody's feeling good. They know now that like who they're going to face in playoffs. And listen, the LA Galaxy had a chance to move up to 3. We knew they could have dropped all the way to 7. And whenever Houston scored at one point, I think the Galaxy had gone all the way down to 6th. At one point, they were in 6th, right? And we were watching the live standings. And then the Galaxy tied the game. And it was like, oh, well, they're back up to 5th, right? You know, and it was this whole thing. And then whenever they took a minute later, right? We should talk about how quickly the 2 goals came, because you had the Riqui Puig goal that finally broke the seal for the LA Galaxy. It felt like everything was just like off posts, not going in or getting blocked or anything like that. Riqui buries his. And then a minute later, it was Chicharito with a pass from Brugman, a wonderful pass. And then Chicharito, I don't know if people paid attention to it. Kevin, did you see the finish? Did you watch the highlights of the finish?
No, I did not, but I heard it was a phenomenal finish.
He hits this right-footed across his body. So the ball's really lined up for a left-footed shot, okay? But because of his stride and the way that he's taking it, he's going to hit it right-footed. And then he doesn't just catch it flush with the right foot, because the goalkeeper's coming out sort of taking off the right side. He hits it around the outside. So he hits it with the outside of his right foot coming across his body, and it goes around the goalkeeper and gets buried into the net. It was, if you're not paying attention to that goal, it looks like it's an easy goal, right? Because he sort of played through, and the announcers, like even Joe Tutino, I think Kobe Jones, were like, oh man, he looked really offside, right? And then Larry Morgan, not on Twitter, texted me and was like, man, that Chicharito goal, that was definitely offside. I don't know how they didn't do it. I'm like, there was a freeze frame on the program that they showed on Spectrum, and the freeze frame showed without a doubt that Chicharito was way onside. And as a matter of fact, he was onside by 2 or 3 feet. It was tight because of how quick everything was closing, defender and the attacker moving in opposite directions. So it looks really tight, but credit to the linesman. And I don't normally credit referees, you know that. I basically I hate every referee I've ever laid my eyes on. My dad will tell you that. That's been a long time coming, since I was like 5 or 6 years old. But they kept the flag down, absolutely, totally onside, not a problem. And so I thought that was such a great goal. And then it was about keeping their foot down, but also holding possession. And at some point in the second half, and I had said the third goal is going to be so important for the LA Galaxy, just because that's it. You've put Houston to bed. They've already been eliminated for weeks, right? This is not a team who thinks that they're in it. And they're going to be all hopped up because they're like, it's our last home game. We got to show something, until you step on their necks, right? Until you go and you're like, no more. We're the better team, until you establish that dominance. And the Galaxy had to establish the dominance, but at 2-1, it's not comfortable. Houston still thinks they're in it. And then you had, I thought, some great subs by Greg Vanney. One of the big criticisms, and I think it's probably correct in a lot of ways, is Greg Vanney and who he puts on in subs in order to settle games, in order to do things. And so you had Victor Vasquez come in, I think because Mark Delgado sort of got hurt a little bit, but Vasquez came in. I thought he did fine, certainly against a Houston defense that was pretty slow. But you had Efrain Alvarez come in, and Chicharito came off. And I know a lot of people were like, at 2-1, why are you bringing Chicharito off? Well, because you're going to put Dayon Jovelich into a tired Houston back line, and you're going to let Efrain Alvarez feed him and score the third goal. That third goal killed Houston. The game was over, and that was it. And you didn't have to play anymore. So,
well, you talk about, we know what a great passer Riqui is, and he's proven it time and time again. And Brugman, with his passing, that's the thing that was, I mean, obviously That's the thing that was missing all season. We kept thinking Efrain was going to be that guy who was going to provide service. We kept hoping. Mark Delgado did try to do it and succeeded at times. Victor Vasquez was hurt too often to really be that guy. But we kept waiting. Who's going to be the link in the midfield? Who's going to be the guy that's going to deliver those passes? We knew that Chicharito was going to be able to score. We knew that Joveljic was be able to score. We know that those guys were getting their opportunities. They just weren't getting fed. And now that was the missing link. And Greg's talked about that over and over and over again, how the midfield was just a mess. And now he's been able to settle it down, and there's some consistency. And that's a big part in that midfield, to have those forwards knowing where the ball is coming from, how it's coming, to have that chemistry. And when it was Efrain 1 week and Victor Vasquez for a couple of starts, and then maybe Sash would come in there, they're all good players. But when it's a different guy every week, it's really hard to adapt to.
Yeah, you can see it. One of the things, let's highlight two guys, both goal scorers in this game. Chicharito, 18 goals, Kevin, in 2022, one better than his 17 goals in 2021. He put together another Player of the Year performance for the LA Galaxy, and the bottom line is that he hit a big dip in the middle of the season, just like the LA Galaxy did, right? The service wasn't there, the passing wasn't there, he wasn't being fed. If you look at his shots that he took this year, it's like 80-something shots, I think 88 shots or something like that, and you look at the shots he took last year, so he got 18 goals this year on like 80-something shots, right? And last year he got 17 goals on like 53 shots, right? So he's been shooting a ton more. He's had to work so much harder this year in order to get 18 goals. That it's actually pretty impressive. And almost 2,600 minutes. Remember whenever I said at the beginning that you got to think that you're going to limit Chicharito to 2,000 minutes? Yeah, I did a good job, didn't I? That was good.
He would have played like all those minutes to get his contract.
He absolutely needed to, right? So Chicharito, 18 goals. He ended up with 2 assists, I believe, and that's something. Then it's Dejan Joveljic, a guy who leads all of Major League Soccer in goals and goal. Goal actions off the bench. He had 8 goals and 2 assists, so 10 total goal actions off the bench. That leads Major League Soccer. He also finished on my chart with scoring a goal once every 89 minutes. And he still had under 1,000 minutes. He's always a guy who afterwards, Kevin, who talks to us about his minutes. He's like, as somebody asked him if you had goals for yourself I think it was Damien asked him if he had goals for himself at the start of the year, and did he sort of meet some of those? And he goes, well, I thought I'd be getting more minutes, right? Did you see Dejan? So Dejan scored his goal, and then he immediately looked at his watch, right? He went over to the corner and he looked at his watch, and he's talking. So Damien asked him afterwards, well, why were you, what was that goal celebration? And Dejan gets this like big smile, and I think he thinks for a second, he goes, because it's playoff time, right? The whole day. And I'm like, yeah, sure, it's playoff time. It has nothing to do with the number of minutes that you got. Like, you just came on and you scored already. And look, just give me minutes, coach. That's the whole thing. Here's the thing with Dejan. He gets it this year, right? He gets it. He understands what his position is, and he's going to come in the playoffs, and he's going to play that super sub role. And he's going to go and he's going to try to score goals whenever they need goals to be scored, Kevin, right? So all those things. He gets his position. I'm not sure he gets that position next year. And for me, I wonder how much of a heartache it's going to be for Greg Vanney to try to manage Dejan Joveljic next year, especially with whole bunches of rumors about different guys coming in, and the fact that most of the guys who are coming in are going to come in and probably play in Dejan's position. Now, Dejan can be a super sub, but is that what he's going to be happy doing next year? And is it worth it to manage somebody who's maybe not happy next year?
Well, before I get to Dejan, one thing. Chicharito is the leading scorer for the Mexican national team. He's a striker. He's a goal scorer. That's what he does. I say all that because, the 18 goals, that's the second most he scored in one season in his life. He had 21 at Guadalajara when he in 2009 and 10 when he made his World Cup debut and wound up. That season took him to Manchester United and started the whole, Chicha legacy or whatever it is. He scored 17 at Leverkusen when people were talking about building a statue to him, and now he's got 18, second most in his career. So that's how good the season's been. With Dejan, I'm not. You talk about how Greg's going to use him next year. I'm not sure he's going to be here next year, and the reason I say that is, does he like it here? Yes. Is he a valuable team with the player? Would the Galaxy like to keep him? Yes. But he's an ambitious guy. He's 22, maybe 23 by next season. He's ambitious. He has goals. There are things he wants to accomplish. And he reminds us time and time again. And if he's reminding us, he's telling Greg time and time again that he wants to play. He played 32 games or 32 games this season, under 1,000 minutes. That's not going to do it for him. He wants to go somewhere else. So you run that risk of of frustrating this guy, making him unhappy,
Right.
or rewarding him. And I think that's one thing that MLS teams, I know Bruce did it a lot, and I hate to keep name checking him, but he's the coach I've been around the most. But other MLS coaches too, they look at that and say, look, you've been a good warrior, a noble soldier. We're going to reward you. We can't give you more pay and more playing time here, so we're going to trade you to the Chicago Fire, who really need a striker. I think that's what might happen, especially if the Galaxy do add a player. Chicharito, he's back next season. If Chicharito wasn't coming back, maybe it'd be different.
Right.
But they got at least one more season of him. They could tell Dejan, look, wait, at 24, you're the guy. He's probably not going to believe him. I think he wants to go somewhere else.
I mean, I don't know how you could tell him you're the guy, especially whenever you're linked to Luis Suarez and Cristiano Ronaldo and all these other. I mean, it doesn't. Here's the problem: Dejan Joveljic, and people are just going to fall over clutching their chest at this. There's two things. One is Dejan Joveljic did not prove in the times that he got starts that he was a starting caliber forward, in my mind. Okay, that's one. Now you can say he's on a different team now with different service, all those things. He puts a lot of goals in the net, mostly as a sub. Whenever he started, that wasn't so much the case, right? So that's one thing. He didn't prove himself to be a starting forward, so how can you possibly put him in that spot knowing you're the LA Galaxy? And two is, this one is really going to make people angry, is he's not a name. He's not a name. And the LA Galaxy usually have big names that are strikers and forwards, and they're the people who draw people and put butts in seats. Right. And so for me, sell Dejan. He's under contract, I believe, next year still. So you sell him, you move him. And that hurts because you need to find somebody who's going to come off the bench and be a super sub and be that guy. And you'd like it to be Dejan. And maybe if the LA Galaxy fall a little bit short this year and don't win an MLS Cup, maybe if they get to the Western Conference Finals, and don't quite make it, maybe they get to an MLS Cup and they don't win it. Maybe there's unfinished business for Dejan Joveljic and he wants to come back with the LA Galaxy, but he has to be motivated in order to do that.
Well, I agree with the second part. The first part is immaterial because Dejan thinks he's a starting striker, and that's the important part. There are guys. The Clippers had a great sixth man a couple years ago, and he wound up, I think, leading the team in points. But he loved coming off the bench. That was his role, and he loved it. And he embraced it. Dejan is not loving and embracing it. He's succeeding at it.
Right.
But the other thing is, you mentioned Ronaldo. Do you really think Ronaldo would start over Dejan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that was a joke? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
$2 super chat.
He probably would.
$2 super chat from what the rumors next year, such as Sue. Right. That's the Cristiano Ronaldo thing. Am I getting better at it or am I getting worse? You tell me. But anyway,
do you remember when Ibra was coming and I told Chris Klein that I thought he was going to play
I thought that too.
bench?
I thought that too. So I don't blame you. What do we know? We're morons. I don't know why people pay attention to us. Right? I mean, I did say that the LA Galaxy were a top 3 team in the Western Conference, and I only missed it by one spot. Stupid Sporting Kansas City could have made me a genius, but they didn't. And I'm also very well aware, Kevin, that there's zero chance I could have known that at the beginning of the year whenever they didn't have Riqui, Puig and Gaston Brugman in there. So why even listen to me? I'm not sure.
Well, during the whole Chris Klein controversy during the summer, people were asking me, what should he do? What should the team do? If I knew, I would be the president. I don't know. That's why I'm doing this.
They don't pay us to make those decisions.
That's why I don't sit in the presidential suite during the games.
No, absolutely. It doesn't happen. Yeah. Listen, I will say this about Cristiano Ronaldo. He's going to be available this winter, and it feels like now or never. If you're the LA Galaxy, I think
Miami's the favorite in that. Especially now,
Miami can't be the favorite for everybody. So they already are going after Leo Messi. So don't start with it. It's going to be. I know. David Beckham and Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah,
I know.
Look at the cities. Is Miami a Messi city or Ronaldo city? It's a Ronaldo.
It's a Messi city. Ronaldo's much more Hollywood. People are going to back me up on this. That's not even. Okay. You're so far off.
Ronaldo would be so good in Las Vegas.
Like Messi wears socks with sandals. That's definitely like South Florida, Miami. All right, you can't get away with that here.
Munich.
It's not the Birkenstocks. That's what you're trying to go with. Okay, I got you. I followed you there. That was okay. It wasn't a bad one. I'm trying to think. There were some other things. Just DP wise, if you look at the LA Galaxy DPs, they played a total of 62.1% of the total available minutes. Some of that comes as Kevin Cabral moved to the bench, 55.2% of the available minutes, and he was healthy the entire year. He played in 33 games. Kevin Cabral did, but he only played 55.2% of the total minutes because he got subbed out in most of those, right? Douglas Costa finally started picking things up, but he was only available for 46.2% of the total available minutes. You had Chicharito, who there always seems to be one designated player who just carries everybody else on their back, almost 85% of the total available minutes. If you want to go for costs per, go.
That's one of the biggest surprises of the season for me, that Chicharito played that many minutes.
I know.
And that's what we talked about. If he plays a full season, how good can he be? Well, we know 18 goals.
Yeah, and yeah, he did. If you want to look at cost per game, the Chicharito cost the LA Galaxy $187,500 per game. Douglas cost the LA Galaxy $111,111 per game, and Kevin Cabral cost the LA Galaxy $50,000 per game. Per goal,
I'd play for half
that?
of what Cabral got. Yeah,
I know, me too. Cost per goal, Chicharito at $313,000. See, if you score a lot of goals, your cost per goal goes way down. You had Douglas Costa at almost $600,000, and then of course Kevin Cabral and his one lone teeny tiny little goal, $1.6 million, because he makes $1.6 million. So for that, but Kevin Cabral a darn near steal. Kevin, whenever you figured he only cost the LA Galaxy $948 per minute that he played this year. Chicharito at $2,174 per minute, and Douglas Costa at $1,686 per minute. I like to add a little rage just before the end, so people get angry with stuff. I don't want everybody feeling good about this team, like that good about this team. I want to make sure.
So you mean every minute that Chicharito plays, he could buy like a new luxury car?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not a luxury car. It's not it's only $2,000 per minute. That's not I thought. Yeah, okay. Per game.
So
he's
half.
making.
You
Yeah,
have to play a half to get
a luxury car. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I'm glad we figured that one out. One of the interesting things, the LA Galaxy, with their away points, finished with 22 away points. 22 away points is the most points since 2012, Kevin, that the LA Galaxy got on the road. In 2012, they got 23 points on the road. In 2022, they got 22 points on the road. You could sort of look over all those different years, and the Galaxy weren't exactly the best road teams, but they were a very good road team this year, which is good because they weren't that good of a home team whenever you look at it. They got... Yeah.
You know what's really funny? Greg Vanney said yesterday, I don't know if you picked up on this, he said the guys are really excited about coming home, playing this playoff game at home. They're really looking forward to it. They're geeked up. He didn't use that word. That's my word. But coming home, and that's another indication of how this team has changed since August, because when they were having that bad spell in July and August, I remember having a conversation with him, and he said these guys are scared to play at home.
Right.
And he said that they're intimidated by the fans. They know the fans want them to do well, and they're intimidated by that. And they feel like when when they start to go south, that the fans aren't supporting them. It wasn't. Don't get excited. It wasn't a diatribe against the fans. It was a diatribe against the players. If anything, like they are not rising to the moment. That you need to make your home a fortress, and these guys are not doing it. I thought that was interesting that Greg Vanney talked about how uncomfortable guys were then at home,
right,
and now how excited they are and how much they're looking forward to coming home. Things have changed in the stands, on the field, certainly the personality of the team. But when you talk about those home and road records, the Galaxy are an unusual team to me, a playoff team. Usually you look at a team like Philadelphia, so good at home, and you just say, these guys need to be home. If they go on the road, they're a little bit in danger. They're just not that good. The Galaxy are a team that, to me, they seem, I know the record shows a slight advantage at home, but they seem to be really equal home and the road. There doesn't seem to be a big advantage one way or the other in the way they play and the results they get. Am I wrong? If they have 22 on the road, they have 28 at home. So it's pretty close. It
was better, but whenever you look historically at whether or not they were a good home team, they weren't a good home team this year. 28 points. They had 29 points last year at home. That's fine. 34, I think, in 2019, I believe that was. You go back to, some of their other days in the 2014, 2015, 39 points, 40 points, 37 points, 41 points. Even 31 points is one of the lows, I think, and that was in 2012, right around that time, right? So the bottom line is they weren't that good at home. They actually were worse than they were last year, and it was one of those places that sort of took a back seat to things. That doesn't mean things didn't change at the end of the season, and I think they did.
Yeah, they did, but the other part is now the Galaxy they could have this one game against Nashville, and if they win, they could go to MLS Cup final, obviously, and they would do it on the road. They could play their last 3 games on the road, and again, that's not one of these situations where you were looking at a Philadelphia or an LAFC and say, well, they're not going to win on the road. They haven't won on the road all season. The Galaxy, like maybe going out of Dignity Health Sports Park isn't that much of a penalty.
I don't think it is for them. I mean, overall, it's not. Then, like I said, they were actually pretty good. Now, ultimately, you're going to be worse on the road, or you should be worse on the road than you are at home, right? Whenever those things happen. The law of averages say that you're not going to be as good on the road. So you should have less points on the road than you do at home. In this case, it's actually pretty tight. It's not a great.
MLS teams won 26% of their road games this season.
That was it, 26%. And the LA Galaxy,
Yeah.
I think, actually did a pretty good job of winning more than probably or above league average on that. But yeah, you look at it, the LA Galaxy. We were sort of talking about this. And I want to be clear about it because now I think we can. We talked about it, I think, on Thursday, which says you need this win against Houston so that way your eyes can match up with what you see, what the final result was, which is if you get 50 points, Kevin, right, which the LA Galaxy did. If you get 50 points, you can now say, well, this team is better than last year. Just on the points, you can make that argument, right? Well, this team is 2 points than they were better than last year. They're headed in the right direction. You can look at the LA Galaxy and say, well, they finished 8th last year and they finished 4th this year in a Western Conference with Nashville. There's some nuance in that you have to sort of play with a little bit in your head to understand that just 2 points better is actually a lot better with a Western Conference that included Nashville, which we all thought was going to be a for sure playoff team, right? So there's things that you have to do in your mind sometimes, and the win makes it easier for you to make that distinction because I think this LA Galaxy team, certainly the team that has played the last 11 games there, Kevin, is a much better team than we saw last year. They're playing exciting soccer. They're playing dominating soccer, possession-based but attacking soccer still.
And confident soccer. They're not looking over their shoulders. There was a time this season, not that long ago, when I always felt they were looking over their shoulder. What bad thing is coming? Now they're on the front foot, and they gave up a goal in the 4th minute, and kept. Or was it the 8th minute? Whenever Ferrer scored, and they never really looked back. They just kept. It was a blip. It wasn't a blow. It was a blip, and they just kept going.
A $20 super chat. Thank you, Juan. We appreciate that. I know, raking it in today. Cheers to COG. Consistently top quality all season long. Clearly, he's got us confused with another
just
podcast.
The first show he's listened to,
Yeah, it is. Excited to be heading into the playoffs. Hot. Bring on the Golasos. How did I do? Was that good? Did I say Golaso better or worse? That they're giving me.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
They're giving me pronunciation guides in this. Also, I think it plays better if I don't know how to say it. So stop trying to teach me things. Yeah, so it's again, I think that the Galaxy are in a good spot. I really like it. One of the things that I wanted to point out before we get too far along is this chart right here. And this says goal projections, but whenever it's a full season, they're not goal projections, they turn into actuals, right? So we can sort of do that. The only thing is that in 2020, they didn't play a full 34 games. So we do have projections. In 2020, the year before Greg Vanney came, and obviously the COVID year, and it was a shorter season and all those other things, right? We look at what the LA Galaxy were projected to do over 34 games. They only played 22, but what were they projected to do over 34? They were projected to score 42 goals. All right. They were expected, if they played 34 games, to give up 71 goals. Right. And so, like, you do all this here, you look at that. That's what 2020 was. Greg Vanney comes in and he moves the offense to 50 goals. So they scored more goals than they did in 2020 projections. You look at the defensive goals they gave up was 54. Whenever you look at that number, it's almost 20 goals better than in 2020, right? And what they were projected. They gave up 46 goals in 22 games and 54 goals in 34 games between 2020 and 2021. So there was an improvement there. We're seeing, again, they're baby steps, but things are getting better. 2022 through 34 games, 58 goals scored, 51 goals. The goal difference, Kevin, is actually almost shocking in a little bit of ways, right? The goal difference is their best goal difference in like the last 6 years, right? The +7 that they finished with is 2019, which is the last time they made the playoffs. I think they were a -1. Right. And so we look at what sort of the baby steps that the team has been making and that things are trending in the right direction. We can continue to say, yes, things are moving in the right direction. We look at the points per month just to close it out. So you can see how it was. The LA Galaxy finished on a 4-game unbeaten streak, going 3-0-1 in that time, right? Last 2 games, draw and a win. So the LA Galaxy closed that one out. Here's the great one. Look at the standings at the end of the season, Kevin. They shoot through the roof, right? Because this is an LA Galaxy team that at one point was, 15th in the Supporter Shield and finished all way up high in that particular one. I think they finished in 8th for the LA Galaxy in the Supporter Shield, which means they will be a seeded team, top 14 teams or top 15. Yeah, I think top 15 teams in Major League Soccer will be seeded for the Leagues Cup, which means the LA Galaxy will be a seeded team in the Leagues Cup whenever they have it, which means they'll get to host some games. All right. So
what do you think about Leagues Cup? I got a lot of static for this, maybe deserved, but I had a reason for saying it. When they announced the Leagues Cup schedule and it was exactly hour for hour the same as the Women's World Cup.
It's not because it's in.
I know that the game started at different times, but couldn't they have?
Why?
I just don't like the fact that they're squatting all over the best women's tournament.
Is everybody supposed to stop whenever the women play?
No, and everybody won't stop for the Leagues Cup either. I just don't understand why this whole talk about the rising soccer boats, water is going to lift all boats, and if you, I just don't like the fact that they're squatting. They don't hold the NCAA basketball Final Four the same time as the BCS football championships. They give each one a little bit of room to breathe.
Yeah,
I just don't know why they couldn't have started it 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after, and give the women a little bit of a runway to have their tournament too, and then Leagues Cup would be bigger as well.
Again, you're thinking that the games are going to be like overlapping, and more than likely you're going to have women's games in the morning. They're going to stop, and you're going to have Leagues Cup game tonight. It sounds like a wonderful day. It sounds like you're going to have. It sounds like the two will be able to build off of each other, not compete with each other. I think you're looking at it totally wrong. The other thing is that this is the window. This is the window that they were always going to play Leagues Cup, right? So this is not. It's not like, oh, they're like, let me find out when the Women's World Cup is, and let's screw with them a little bit. That's not how it went.
You know what's really bothering me is I'm going to be in New Zealand and Australia for that, and I won't be able to cover the Leagues Cup. That's what's really bothering me.
Which means that the United States will be better off for how long is the World Cup? It's gone there for a while. You're going to be gone for a while. We'll be good.
I'm going to go check out some kangaroos.
That's fine. Have you ever had kangaroo? Like, have you eaten kangaroo?
I'm vegetarian. I wouldn't even eat kangaroo even if I could.
It is.
Oh, you probably eat koalas and you watch panda snuff movies.
I don't. They don't serve koala. I haven't seen anybody serve koala meat, but kangaroo is a fairly plentiful animal. So yes, I have had kangaroo before. It is delicious. Definitely have it. I know you're vegetarian, just hold your nose and try to
watch somebody eat it.
Yeah, watch somebody else eat it. $5 super chat. Which Galaxy player can be the next playoffs Pando? Right, the guy who doesn't score the whole time and then scores and scores in the playoffs in the MLS Cup to win the whole thing. Right, that's the guy. So which one? It's Kevin Cabral. Duh. That's come on now.
He's going to get a hat trick in the second half of the final.
Right, that'll be it, and that's how it goes. It'll be good. Thank you, Raphael, for the $5 super chat. Appreciate that. So I think that's it for the charts. I mean, one of the things I wanted to point out is the LA Galaxy still didn't win more than 2 games in a row. We're tracking that, right, and haven't under Greg Vanney, so that hasn't happened. Maybe they could win against Houston. Maybe they could beat Nashville, and then maybe they beat LAFC. It still wouldn't count for the regular season as far as I'm concerned, so, still doesn't quite work for me on that one. The unbeaten streak, though, improved this year, 6 in 2022. They were also 6 games unbeaten in 2020, which is kind of surprising when you see it. But 6 games unbeaten. Longest losing streak was at 3 this year, and the longest single season winless streak was just at 4. It was 9 in 2021. So as much as we like to talk about the mid-season slump the LA Galaxy went through, at least they didn't have a super long extended winless streak as that sort of goes.
No, they had 8 draws this season.
Yes.
5 of them came in the last 11 games when they had that streak.
Mm-hmm.
So you say, okay, they're hot, but they're not winning, but they're not losing. You and I talked about this off the air one time, and I don't think I'm completely satisfied. Why do some teams have a lot of draws and other teams don't? Does that indicate that the teams that have a lot of draws are more conservative and will accept a result rather than pushing for the victory? Does that indicate that they're mediocre and that they can't win and the best they can hope for is a draw, or that they don't make cataclysmic mistakes in the final minutes and turn a draw into a loss? Do you have any sense on that? Because I think it's interesting. Some teams will have 8, 10, 12 draws. Like one reason that the Galaxy are in 4th place is because they have more victories than Nashville, but Nashville has way more draws than they do.
Right. I mean, you can see it. I don't know. I never know, because certainly if you just look over the history of the LA Galaxy and what teams were good and what teams weren't, I'll tell you a team, 2016 LA Galaxy, they were 12, 6, and 16. Okay, 16. It was a team that didn't lose. It was a team that drew a ton of games, but they should have won a bunch of those games, and they didn't, right? And so you can sort of look at different teams and how they draw and what they play. A lot of times draws mean teams aren't playing well, but the best teams, whenever they get draws, Kevin, it's usually because they play poorly. It's because they were playing poorly, right? And so like those teams in 2011 or 2012, the Galaxy, you knew that if they were going to play bad, they weren't going to lose the game, but they might draw the game, right? It was one of those.
And 16 draws tells me that, yes, you're one kick away from winning the game, but you're also one kick away from losing.
Right.
And what happened to that Galaxy team? It lost in the playoffs on penalty kicks because it let Colorado hang around.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can't do that, right? And so those are all those are sort of the things you pay attention to. Let's get to the bracket itself. We've talked about the game already, but obviously we want to highlight the bracket now that it is completed, right? So this bracket has been filled out. We know that the LA Galaxy will host Nashville by way of beating the Houston Dynamo. The LA Galaxy were guaranteed to have a home game. At one point, it was LA versus Minnesota in the 5, but that didn't happen. Nashville ended up beating LAFC on the road, so Nashville gets that point, and they put themselves up into 5th place. So it's LA Galaxy hosting Nashville. The Galaxy have only ever played them twice. They're undefeated. They have 1 win and 1 draw playing against Nashville. Former Dave Romney on that team, so you're going to look a little bit at Super Dave Romney is going to be in there, so that's something to watch. The other games that are going to be played is the 3-6. Dallas is 3, Minnesota is 6, and then Austin is 2, and RSL is 7. Here's the stupid, interesting thing about the MLS Cup playoffs this year is that it is a fixed bracket, which means the number 1 team will play the winner of the 4-5. All right, which, by the way, could mean that if the 6 and the 7 win, and the 6 and the 7 are going to play in the conference semis, Kevin, that the number 1 team will not play the 7. They won't play the worst team. They're just going to play a team that is coming out of the 4-5. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know how in God's name you could possibly draw up a bracket like this and be like, oh yeah, this makes sense. You're doing something arbitrarily. And I think for no benefit. I don't know that there's any sort of benefit outside of what way that LAFC knows they're going to play either one of the LA Galaxy or Nashville. That's it, instead of it possibly being one of 4 teams.
Well, I thought about that, like maybe, they're thinking about TV or they're thinking about travel, but they can't be because we don't know the teams yet. We don't know,
right.
Is it Nashville or the Galaxy? We don't know. Nashville was talking yesterday about we're going to go home now, but we're coming back to play the Galaxy. And if we win, we're going to play LAFC. We might stay here or we might not. Or, nobody knows anything. If you say it's the winner of 2-7 or the winner of 4-5, I don't think it makes any difference at this point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it should still be, if you finish first, you should go after it. You should be put against the team that's the worst. That's the
lowest seed all the way through. If the lowest seed happens to be 5, it's 5. If the lowest seed is 7, it's 7.
It's 7. Yeah, absolutely. That's how it should be. But anyway, we know already. See, here's the cool thing. This is one sort of thing, is that as the LA Galaxy, if the LA Galaxy beat Nashville, right? And we know that this game is coming up at 12 p.m. We told you it's a 12:08 p.m. kickoff right now. I kind of expected it to be a bigger lead-in, but apparently it's not. So 12:08 p.m. is your kickoff, right? We know that if the LA Galaxy win this game, that they will play at LAFC on Thursday. All right, we already know it's on Thursday. That game will be on FS1 and Fox Deportes, right? And that game will kick off at 7 p.m., or at least TV time will start at 7 p.m. on Thursday. So that we can guarantee. Should the LA Galaxy get through Nashville, they will then play again on Thursday at Bank of California Stadium to play against LAFC. One game at a time, but we know because of how the brackets are set up and how the TV scheduling is set up, we already know the day and the time for that game should it happen. So that's...
And the other thing about the Galaxy finishing 4th, by the way, is we're going one game at a time, but we're also looking ahead. If the Galaxy were to beat LAFC, they would have a pretty good chance of hosting the conference final because there are at least 3 teams below them in the bracket right now.
Yeah, so
one of those 3 win.
So you would look at the teams that are below the LA Galaxy, but in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference in order to be able to host a final, right? So you would look at Cincinnati, who finished below the LA Galaxy. You would look at Miami. You would look at Orlando, I believe, are the 3 teams that, should they get to MLS Cup Final and the LA Galaxy get to MLS Cup Final, the LA Galaxy would host. Okay, I think that's...
Well, you're already on that charter. You probably want to go to Montreal, I bet.
I have so much stuff going on, like on Thursday night. There's zero chance that, like, after Thursday and then stuff, I don't even know if I'll be able to go to the playoff game on Thursday night, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. The LA Galaxy have to get past Nashville first, and I think it's going to be a very difficult game to do. But there is a chance the LA Galaxy could host an MLS Cup. It just has to be any of the teams that finish below them in the regular season, right?
I can't believe you wouldn't go to the LAFC game knowing how much you love the bank.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite. So much fun. Yeah, we'll see. I'm on babysitting duty. I believe my wife is out of town, so I will be on Jake duty if that's the case. I'll still get to watch the game. I just probably won't be able to go. So that would be.
So what's Jake going to be for Halloween?
That's actually a very good question because we're trying not to. So we asked him, and he wanted to be Lightning McQueen for Halloween. Okay,
that's
cool.
a good one. Good
yeah,
choice.
Very good. Yeah, not a problem. So we bought him the Lightning McQueen that like fits over his head, right? So he walks around in the car. So we're like, good, we're done. And then like school keeps asking him what he's going to be for Halloween and all this stuff, and then he starts telling them like different things. So. Right now, Jake has a costume that is Mario. He wanted to be Mario, so he's, Super Mario Brothers. He wants to, it's me, Mario. Yeah, so he right now has a Mario costume just in case he changes his mind. And right now,
why couldn't Mario be driving?
There's
the race car.
There's apparently an Instagram account who does things where it's like last minute changes to their kids' costumes. Like, it's like she said she wanted to be a cat. And then the day of Halloween, she's like, I want to be a ballerina. So she ends up being like a ballerina cat. Right. So yeah, so that's what we think we're going to do. A whole bunch of things. Yeah, that's where we're at. So I think that's it. I think we've sort of covered a bunch of things. I mean, the bottom line is if you are one to believe in the buzz around the league and certainly hearing other people talk about the LA Galaxy and everything there is an aura of sort of some worry about the LA Galaxy from other teams, right? This is a different team. Riqui Puig is a different player. Gaston Brugman is a different guy. The midfield is different. The way the team plays is different. People are worried. I don't know if Nashville is worried, and I think that Nashville actually stands a really good chance of withstanding the LA Galaxy. But having said that, as of right now, I don't think the LA Galaxy should be worried. They're playing at home against Nashville. The last time they did that, they beat them 1-0. Remember, it was it a Dejan Joveljic goal, I believe, that ended up scoring in the very final minutes.
2 games, a total of 3 goals, and one of them was the Riqui Puig penalty shot that was awarded only after VAR in the 99th minute. It's not going to be a bushel full of goals. I think obviously, after watching Joe Willis last night, it's going to be. I bet you it's 1-0.
I will tell you something, and there's 2 absolute truths that you know about Major League Soccer. Is one, you cannot win MLS Cup if you don't make the playoffs. So the LA Galaxy are in that, and now the LA Galaxy are just 4 wins away from hoisting their 6th MLS Cup. You don't want to overstate that, but the bottom line is the LA Galaxy have just as good a chance as anybody, and in fact, probably better chances than a majority of the teams in the playoffs right now to hoist that cup at the end.
Okay, teams with the most penalty kicks this year.
The LA Galaxy are number 1.
Teams with the most penalty kick misses.
The LA Galaxy are number 1. We knew that. We talked about that.
But my point is this Nashville game, it's going to be a 1-goal game, if not a draw.
Right.
That means penalty kicks. Got to get 5 guys, and then maybe beyond that.
Yep.
I don't know the Galaxy. I mean, do you have 5 guys you would pick? That's going to be really interesting on how Greg plays that, because he's going to be playing to win, but at the same token, he's going to be having to sub guys that maybe he doesn't want on the field to try to push for the win, but he needs them there for the penalty. I'm thinking of Sasha Kleshchen. Mm-hmm. That's a guy that needs to be on the field for that penalty kick shootout. Who's your 5 guys? Chicharito's coming nowhere near that, and I'm not sure Riqui Puig is either. And Kevin Cabral, he can just go to the locker room. Sasha's got to be involved. I think Victor. Who are your guys?
Yeah.
Bondi. Put Bondi. Joveljic.
Yeah, but you're going to have to get him on. I guess you do bring him on in order to win.
You're going to have to sub him. So that's what I mean.
You pull Chicharito off. Oh, it's going to be... Yeah, don't do that. There's still a whole week of people panicking about
Costa
penalty kicks.
Costa.
Yeah, Lu Costa, I think, is the best penalty taker right now on the team that's regularly out there for minutes. But he's not going to be in the 90th minute in this game, right? Because he doesn't make it that long.
And do we know how is Bond? I know he's been on the field for penalty kicks, but
we
don't know whether Jonathan Klinsmann is like fantastic, and do we have to sub
I don't know
Bond out and put Klinsmann in because you want him in for the shootout?
Maybe his phone just told him. I don't know. I've been wanting to get a Jonathan Klinsmann, Landon Donovan dig tweet reference in all year, and I decided to just shoehorn it into here. All right, that's it. We're leaving it. We are leaving this open. I want people to go away feeling good about the LA Galaxy right now, and then we'll scare them on Thursday night show. That's really how it is. LA Galaxy versus Nashville. coming up on Saturday. 12 p.m. is your TV start time. 12:08 p.m. is your kickoff time. Univision and TUDN. Now, before we go, there will be one more thing. Let's do this. By the way, $2 super chat from Michael says Cabral is going to be the MVP and lead us to glory. There you go. See.
Hey, so if on Saturday, if you buy a ticket for the Malia Emma concert, you get to stay for the game. There, I told you.
Good. I'm glad you put it in there. About the TV stuff and Univision. Now, we had heard that there is a possibility for a local broadcast. I was very. It's not going to happen. Sort of right after the game, I'm like, I don't think Spectrum is going to pick it up. I think that there's a better chance of that happening now, but this all comes down to money, right? This always comes down to money. You know, I don't even know if Spectrum really wanted the LA Galaxy this year, and I don't know if the Galaxy are paying them or Spectrum is like getting it for free or whatever they're doing in those things. Maybe Spectrum needed the programming, but bottom line is that I'm not sure Spectrum has the budget, and this is my suggestion to the LA Galaxy. Pay the $25,000 or $30,000 it costs to produce the game and put it on Spectrum, and give Joe and Kobe one more game, give them a playoff game, give people who aren't going to watch it in Spanish, who aren't going to be at the game, give them a chance to watch the game there on LAGalaxy.com or sort of. I guess they won't be able to do that because it's nationally televised, but at least you'll get it on Spectrum.
Well, and in Spectrum, it's great Saturday mid-afternoon, early afternoon broadcasting, stuff to put on when everyone's watching college football anyways. And it's only $25,000. That's only half of what you're going to pay Kevin Cabral to play that game.
Oh, fun. Good times. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, or are we done? Can we please be done?
Yeah, Malia Emma's last name. Give it a shot.
Not going to say it. All right. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter, it's at KBaxter11. Head on over to the LATimes.com. Subscribe to that newsletter. He works so hard on it. Even if he doesn't like his lead right now, he will eventually fix it, and it'll probably be okay by the time you read it tomorrow. Go over to LATimes.com to be able to do that. All right. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com for the videos, for the podcast. All that fun stuff is right there. Cornerofthegalaxy.com. LA Galaxy coming up against Nashville for the first round of the MLS Cup playoffs, the first home playoff game since 2016 for Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter. I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening, you've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box special playoff edition on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.